Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being, where all the human race are common enemies. Death, welcome on my YouTube channel. Try Something.Vegetarian. This is the broadcast. All 28 EU membership states reject Israeli sovereignty over the Golan and slam Trump's Proclamation. So what I'm going to do in this broadcast is just read an article, and I also wrote down some thoughts about it. First I'll have to learn more about this stuff. The EU is not really the same as the UN, and I covered that in my recent broadcasts. At one time, the Lucis Trust office was located in New York at 666 United Nations Plaza, and they are now located at 866 United Nations Plaza. CanadaFreePress.com is the source. Lucis Trust, Luciferians in the UN. Bad Guacamole uploaded that YouTube video, and what might surprise you even more is that there is a satanic library inside the United Nations building called Lucis Trust, formerly known as Lucifer Publishing Company. Okay, so this is the article I want to review. I also did other reviews about other articles of the Jerusalem Post. In my previous broadcast I covered some more articles on this same channel, and I jotted down some new points. See if that's on topic. Okay, then I take it from here this time. New writings. Let's start with this and then read the article. Turn on my webcam so you can all see what I'm doing in the meantime.
Real snobbers. Where is Palestine exactly? Have they wiped Palestine of the map? Perhaps a GMO could be designed that will wipe out all other genetically modified organisms to bring back nature. Annexation is generally held to be an illegal act. Wiki. Annexation. Tesla's wireless energy patent, US 787,412 art of transmitting electrical energy through the natural mediums was granted in 1905, and Tesla's radiant energy patent, US 685,957, apparatus for the utilization of radiant energy, was granted November 5, 1901. Trinity was the code name of the first detonation of a nuclear weapon. It was conducted by the United States Army at 5:29 a.m. on July 16, 1945, as part of the Manhattan Project. So, the invention of Tesla's death ray, radiant energy, wireless energy, scalar waves superseded the invention of the atomic bomb by about 40 years. Thus it is possible a thermonuclear world war has never been possible, even likely. Synthetic telepathy, METHYLCOBALAMIN patent, has been around since 1974. Palestine, region, Palestine, Arabic, Palestine, Latin, Palestina, Hebrew, Palestina, is a geographic region in Western Asia usually considered to include Israel, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and in some definitions, some parts of Western Jordan. State of Palestine, Palestine, Arabic, Philis. In, officially the State of Palestine, Arabic, Dawlat Philis. In, is it a jure sovereign state in Western Asia claiming the West Bank, bordering Israel and Jordan, and Gaza Strip, bordering Israel and Egypt, with Jerusalem as the designated capital, although its administrative center is currently located in Ramallah. The entirety of territory claimed by the State of Palestine has been occupied by Israel since the Six-Day War in 1967. Palestine has a population of 4,816,503 as of 2016, ranked 123rd in the world. Strip Gaza, Gaza Strip in Who owns the West Bank and the Temple Mount now? What will happen with the Palestinian people living in Gaza and the West Bank now? 1. One-state solution. Everyone living in Israel now gets an Israeli passport if the Israelis get the Temple Mount. 2. The Palestinians are expelled from Israel. 3. All people who are not Israelis are killed.
So these are just some thoughts about the third temple, how it works. Have they already begun building the third temple? What are the laws surrounding this? And then there's this article, all 28 EU member states reject Israeli sovereignty over the Golan, March 28, 2019. So let's read this then, including the other articles at the top it refers to.
Netanyahu's annexation talk upends decades of diplomatic policy. Post. Israel News. Iran's Khamenei calls U.S. blacklisting of guards a vicious move. This site. Julian Castro joins Democratic hopefuls in bashing Netanyahu. Post. Israel News. Blue and white leaders call for an emergency meeting. This site. Jerusalem Post. Arab-Israeli conflict. All 28 EU member states reject Israeli sovereignty over the Golan. U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday signed an official presidential proclamation recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. By Tova Lazarov, Omri Namias. An old military vehicle can be seen positioned on the Israeli side of the border with Syria, near the Druze village of Majdal Shams in the Golan Heights. Photo credit, Emre Awad, Reuters. All 28 EU member states have rejected the U.S. recognition of Israel's 1981 annexation of the Golan Heights from Syria, the office of the EU's foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, said on Wednesday. The European Union spoke out after U.S. President Donald Trump signed a declaration in Washington supporting Israeli sovereignty on the Golan during Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the White House this week. Read more related articles. Britain's Parliament approves legislation forcing May to consult on Brexit delay. Presidential hopeful condemns Trump's U.S. Middle East plan, recommended by Trump's declaration overturned 52 years of United States policy that, until this week, had refused to accept Israeli rule over the Golan, which the IDF captured from Syria during the Six-Day War in 1967. It also flew in the face of international and United Nations opposition to the acquisition of the territory by force, even in a defensive war. At the request of Syria, the UN Security Council planned to hold a special session on the U.S. decision late Wednesday. The Jerusalem Post obtained a copy of the letter sent to the French mission to the UN, the country currently serving as president of the Council. In the letter, the Syrian mission asked for an urgent formal meeting of the Security Council under the agenda item "The Situation in the Middle East," in order to discuss the situation in the occupied Syrian Golan and the recent flagrant violation of the relevant Security Council resolution by a permanent member state. Earlier in the day, Mogherini's office stated, "The position of the European Union as regards the status of the Golan Heights has not changed. In line with the international law and UN Security Council resolutions 242 and 497, the EU does not recognize Israeli sovereignty over the occupied Golan Heights. Israel has long argued that the Golan Heights are essential for its security. It's an argument that has been strengthened in recent years, as Iran has worked to gain a foothold in that area in order to attack Israel." Israeli right-wing politicians lashed out at the EU for its rejection of Israeli Golan sovereignty. "The EU does not recognize Jerusalem as our capital," New Right Party head and Education Minister Naftali Bennett said in a video message he posted on Twitter. "Shame on you," he said to the EU. "The Golan Heights and Jerusalem and the land of Jewish people thousands of years before France was the home of the French, and the United Kingdom the home of the British," Bennett said. "So we will continue building our amazing country. "We will continue defending the free world from radical Islam, even though you do not deserve it," Bennett said. Golan party head and finance minister Moshe Golan.
Well, basically, then the question is also what was the land of the Palestinians exactly, for example, the Temple Mount. If I would look at the map of Israel, Palestine would be on there. What's happening? I clicked on that thing. So where is Palestine? Perhaps there's a more detailed one. Well, that's not clear enough. I could try Google Earth, perhaps. Launch Earth and Chrome. I think I know I installed it app also. So while that loads, I can read the rest of the article, of course.
Said, "We will not allow those who keep the Iranian terrorist regime's economy afloat to preach morality to us. Israel will not be held hostage by peace refuseniks and the policies of the axis of evil. The whole world knows that the Golan Heights is an inseparable part of the land of Israel and the State of Israel," Golan said. Meretz party head Tamar Sandberg said that Trump's election gift to Bibi has started to cost us dearly. Now the EU is clarifying its position on the Golan Heights. Why did these demons have to be awakened on a subject that was not even on the table? On Wednesday evening, Netanyahu met with Golan Regional Council head Chaim Roach and Katzrin Local Council head Demia Partsv to show them a copy of the declaration, explaining that this is something Israel has long been waiting for. "This is a tremendous declaration that strengthens our sovereignty over the Golan Heights," Netanyahu told them. On Tuesday in New York, the 5 EU members of the Security Council, France, Great Britain, Belgium, Germany and Poland, held a small press conference to underscore their objection to Trump's declaration. Recommended videos powered by AnyClip. G7 Foreign Ministers kick off second day of talks. Play video now playing. 7 Foreign Ministers kick off second day of talks. EU Foreign Policy Chief, Bloc won't recognize Israeli sovereignty on Golan. France under pressure to condemn Haftar's. EU seeks unity on Libya crisis. EU unimpressed by Trump's regrettable sanctions on Iran. US prepares two-track approach to Iran deal. G7 summit rescued by low expectations. No quarrels, and Libya court Iran warns against changes to nuclear deal, says it will not renegotiate. Annexation of territory by force is prohibited under international law. Any declaration of a unilateral border change goes against the foundation of the rules-based international order in the UN Charter. We raise our strong concerns about the border consequences of recognizing illegal annexation and also about the border regional consequences, they said. They also spoke against Israeli sovereign over the Golan at Tuesday's Security Council monthly meeting on the Middle East peace process, which is largely devoted to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Acting U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Jonathan Cohen defended his country's support of Israeli sovereignty on the Golan, explaining that any peace agreement would have to address Israel's security needs on the Golan Heights. To allow the Golan Heights to be controlled by the likes of the Syrian and Iranian regimes would turn a blind eye to the atrocities of the Assad regime and malign and destabilizing presence of Iran in the region, Cohen said. In Washington, State Department spokesman Robert Palladino told reporters that if Israel withdrew from the Golan, it would be used as a launching ground for attacks against Israel. Israel's sovereignty over the Golan enhances Israel's security, which strengthens, frankly, our ability to partner with Israel to fight the common threats that we face, Palladino said. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the U.S. decision was not an attempt to make a statement with regard to the acquisition of territory during times of war. Rather, he explained, it is an assessment of Israel's unique security situation. Israel should not be asked to commit suicide to be in compliance with a UN resolution, he said. This is an incredibly unique situation. Israel was fighting a defensive battle to save its nation, and it cannot be the case that a UN resolution is a suicide pact. It simply can't be, and that's the reality that President Trump recognized in his executive order yesterday, Pompeo said. Ambassador to the UN Danny Dunn told the Post that the Golan Heights will remain forever under Israeli sovereignty. And the time has come for the international community to recognize this. Instead, the Security Council should demand answers from Syria about President Bashar Assad slaughtering his people and, at the same time, allowing Iran to establish a military presence to operate against the State of Israel. Russia and the Arab League have also rejected the declaration. Such decisions undoubtedly have negative consequences, from the point of view of a settlement in the Middle East and the general atmosphere of a political settlement in Syria, said Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. Join Jerusalem Post Premium Plus now for just $5 and upgrade your experience with an ads-free website and exclusive content. Click here. Tags: European Union Golan Heights Federica Mogherini. Share on Facebook. Share on Twitter. Iran's Khamenei calls U.S. blacklisting of guards a vicious move. Negative repercussions to IRGC on U.S. terror list designation. Iraqi recommended by related content. French consulate worker rape related. 2019 French consulate worker imported guns to Israel, incarcerated for 7 years by Yasser Akbi, Mariv. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki. Paul warns of chaos and violence if Netanyahu annexes West Bank by Ilan Chernik. Iron Dome anti-missile system fires interception missiles as rockets are launched from Gaza. XIDF intel.
So basically I've been trying to find a normal map. It's on satellite map basically. Exit ground level view. Better. So I kind of like these dome-shaped buildings. Vatican, Capitol Building, Al-Aqsa. And one idea was also building the third temple over the Al-Aqsa, but then you can't see it anymore. So it would have to be transparent. Okay, so how do I get a normal map with this thing? There must be a way. I thought here inside thing there might be stuff. Borders and labels. Places, photos, roads. Weather, gallery, global awareness, more. Overview map. It is pretty cool. You also have these 3D views, etc. Now I'm broadcasting live, so then that takes CPU. Ah, there's the Gaza Strip, Jordan. Oh, you can just search on Palestine then. Nice water animation. Unbelievable. Okay. Did we finish the article already?
General, new missile defense strategy needed against Hamas by Yana Jeremy Bob. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif speaks during the annual Munich Security Conference. Zarif, U.S. is dragging Iran into a quagmire on behalf of Netanyahu by Reuters. Netanyahu, a Palestinian state won't be created by Tova Lazarov, popular in the community. Netanyahu, Likud is losing election. Left is going to win Cyan Planet 7 hours veto Democrats Beto O'Rourke and Bernie Sanders all the way to Somalia and Kenya. It's their ancestors Omar's and Obama's birthplace. Beto and Bernie will be more than qualified to rule these shithole villages. President Donald Trump for 2020. He will continue to make America great. In dramatic shift, Netanyahu's Likud leading in latest exit poll. Olive Car 4 hours. Best to wait for real information, after they actually count the votes. IDFRS 3. The Temple Mount is in our hands. Hope reborn for the Third Temple. May 30, 2017. Chris Mitchell share tweet +23. Jerusalem, Israel. The capture of Jerusalem's Temple Mount 50 years ago sent shockwaves throughout the Jewish world. It also raised hopes for the building of the Third Temple. On June 7, 1967, Israeli Brigade Commander Col. Mottiger made an announcement that Jews had waited to hear for some 2,000 years. The Temple Mount is in our hands. The Temple Mount is in our hands. He declared. Retaking this ground was important for a number of reasons. For one, It's where King Solomon built the first Jewish temple, after the Babylonians destroyed it. Zerubbabel, the head of the tribe of Judah when the Israelites returned from the Babylonian exile, laid the foundation stone for a second temple that was later expanded by King Herod. That temple fell in 70 AD at the hands of the Romans. Related buildings alongside the street. Photo. Shai Halavi archaeologists find evidence of Jerusalem's destruction 2,000 years ago. Photo. CBN News. Jonathan Goff. Israel marks 50 years of reunited capital on Jerusalem Day. Pat Robertson. Why evangelicals support Israel. When Commander Gurr declared the Temple Mount was back in Jewish hands, it rekindled hope for a long-awaited Third Temple. The Six-Day War was a miracle of biblical proportions and was a cataclysmic opening of a new era for Israel and the whole world, Rabbi Chaim Richman told CBN News. Rabbi Richman, director of the International Department at the Temple Institute, is dedicated to rebuilding the Jewish temple. He sees the time since the Six-Day War as a prophetic shift. It would be hard, I think, not to see what's happened in the past 50 years as a tremendous, not just fulfillment of prophecy, but a tremendous jumpstart, a tremendous fast forward, Richman said. It's more than prophetic, it's like a kiss from heaven, it's like a divine kiss, it's like an intimate brush with the reality of God's compassion and love. He keeps his promises. The Institute shares a key connection to the battle for Jerusalem. Its founder, Rabbi Israel Ariel, served with the 55th Paratroopers Brigade that captured the Temple Mount. After the victory, a Jordanian guide gave them a remarkable tour. His job was to carry the company machine gun, Richman explained. There's a very beautiful photograph of that. He actually, the first night of the liberation of Jerusalem, he was given the task of guarding over the spot of the Dome of the Rock, which of course is where is the Holy of Holies. The story, though, that he told us is that the soldiers were on the Temple Mount and it was just like the first hour or so, and they were approached by a Jordanian fellow in Western dress who explained that he was the official tour guide for the Jordanian parliament and he offered to take the soldiers and to show them the sights on the Temple Mount. He takes the soldiers, and the rabbi there and he says, well, this is exactly where the sanctuary stood, this is where the altar stood and then this is where the menorah stood. He tells them all these things about the history of the Holy Temple. Finally, the rabbi asked him, why are you telling us all this? And he said, well, we have tradition from our fathers, and they from their fathers that one day the Jews would wage a war and conquer this mountain and rebuild the Holy Temple, and I assume that you're starting tomorrow. I want this to be my part in helping you, he said, according to Rabbi Richman. What was their reaction to that story? CBN News asked Richman. Well, I guess they were pretty surprised, but the bottom line is in hindsight, it doesn't look like we were ready. Now, 50 years later, that's changed with the Temple Institute preparing blueprints and gathering official temple elements such as the priestly garments. Richman is also dispelling myths about the temple on today's digital loudspeaker, YouTube. All of this means, talk of rebuilding the temple is no longer considered a fringe idea. Today there's a lobby in the Knesset of how many members of Knesset that are constantly speaking about Jewish rights to pray on the Temple Mount, Richman continued. There are members of Knesset that actually talk about the rebuilding the Holy Temple. Do you realize that 20 years ago these people wouldn't have been given a moment on primetime television to say these things? They would have been laughed out. One of those Knesset members is Rabbi Yehuda Glick, so a few years ago this was considered fringe, zealots, lunatics, peculiar. Today it's mainstream. 10 years ago, there was not a single member of Knesset who ascended the Temple Mount, Glick told CBN News. Today we have 20 Knesset members who are interested in ascending Temple Mount, praying on Temple Mount and are part of the redemption of the Temple Mount and bringing the Temple Mount back into the center of the next step in the redemption process. Richman sees the temple through the eyes of the prophet Isaiah who wrote 3,000 years ago that God's house would be called a house of prayer for all nations. Even them I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations. Isaiah 66:7. It means there's a God in the world and that the best is yet to come. and that we are so connected to Him and to each other and to that purpose and to all humanity, and it's just a wonderful privilege to be with you today looking out over Jerusalem and to realize that we're living in probably the most important time in history," he continued. "If you believe in the God of Israel and you see His hand on His people and you understand the tremendous changes that have gone on over the years, you see that the one who brought us this far isn't finished and will keep His promises." In October 2014, an Arab resident of Jerusalem shot Glick at point-blank range, nearly killing him. The would-be assassin fled to a predominantly Arab neighborhood of Silwan, where he was killed after opening fire on Israeli forces. Glick spent nearly a year in the hospital, sustained by his strong faith. He eventually regained full health. Share tweet email +23 buildings alongside the street, photo. Shai Halavi archaeologists find evidence of Jerusalem's destruction 2,000 years ago. Photo, CBN News. Jonathan Goff. Israel marks 50 years of reunited capital on Jerusalem Day. Pat Robertson. Why evangelicals support Israel.
Okay, so that's the article on CBN News. It's not CBS. The Christian Perspective. Christian Broadcasting Network, I guess. So I kind of like the Al-Aqsa better. This is kind of I don't know, blocky. But perhaps they could also work with gold paint and blue, perhaps. Or perhaps it could be built next to the Al-Aqsa, of course. And if you want to have a Messiah, Cancer Scalar Orb, Armageddon, Moshiach, then it would have to be able to house a lot of people, of course. It would have to be huge. So probably the Shekinah swarming the whole Temple Mount, basically. So perhaps they could also save the Al-Aqsa. Well, of course, time-traveling neural network will never be the creator of heaven and earth, so it will never be God. So basically it's against the laws of the Torah to worship that instead of Hashem or Jehovah, Yahweh, etc. Elohim, El Shaddai, 72 names, etc. But their temple here. Yeah. As long as it doesn't take a world war, I mean, they could give that land to the Israelis. They consider, the Muslims consider Mecca holier than the Temple Mount, the holiest of holies, to the Jewish people. But I think they may have planned a population reduction to 500 million, as you all know from their book quotes and their legal Georgia Guidestones, perhaps placed by Mr. Rockefeller under the pseudonym Robert Christian. but I haven't seen any evidence proving that, so it could also be Mr. Rothschild or some other Bilderberger, Committee of 300 member, George Soros perhaps, or some other person that wants to reduce the global population. But like I found out today, the scalar weapons superseded the atomic bomb by about 40 years. The inventions, the patents make it there as well. And scalar weapons have made nuclear weapons obsolete. And perhaps they don't have airborne nuclear weapons, only bombs that they can set off when there's a special harmonic relationship with the sun, according to the book Harmonic 33, which I haven't read. But I think they can definitely make these nuclear-sized explosions. That's also patented, so they don't need nukes for that anymore. And the craters, the blast craters, supposedly prove that as well. I've never visited one myself, but I'm pretty sure that the real, though some atomic test videos could be fake, plastic trees, that's also worth a study, I think. But scalar weapons are more interesting to study, of course. Nikola Tesla's wireless energy. So my theory is that if they would want to prevent any nukes from reaching their targets, they can easily do that. The Dr. Bernard Easton HARP patent describes how. And there's one picture of a Tesla plasma shield. That's a Chinese Tesla plasma shield. And that's basically a big visible shield of electricity, and nothing can go through there. So that's the only thing that can block these scalar waves. Excusez-moi. Also called Nikola Tesla's wireless energy. Radiant energy. It's the same thing. Scientists agree the latter exists, but in reality, Professor Mile and others on YouTube also explain how to generate your own scalar waves. And all you need is some copper wire and a tone generator to generate healing scalar waves. And the videos on YouTube, the Dr. Rive plasma lamp experiments show that these organisms have an eigenfrequency and they can be killed with this frequency generator, and plasma lamp scalar waves or just sound waves even work. So if you play Mozart, then that can kill bacteria and viruses as long as it's the right frequency. So basically everything has its own resonance, its own frequency, because everything is energy. But as we know, a table doesn't have a brain, etc. So if a table talks to you, then it's just a neural network. It can also be the voice of God weapon, the neural network, which is also related to this, of course. It's on topic, because there is no real God, there can never be a real Messiah, so they will both be fake. But after they've depopulated, reduced the global population to 500 million, they can give everybody the same experience, that everybody see the same, quote, miracle, unquote. So with synthetic telepathy and that neural network, etc., they can do a lot, but 7.5 billion people, that's a lot of people, so to give them all the same experience, I think it would be doable right now already. And perhaps we passed the point in time where they could have gotten away with it. But what does it mean that all 28 EU member countries reject Israeli sovereignty. And why is it scrolling down all the time? I'm not doing that. So they are doing that with wireless energy. I'm not scrolling down. All 28 EU member states reject Israeli sovereignty over the Golan. So could that lead to a world war where the Americans with Israel attack Europe and Europe attacks Israel if they would invade or annex these territories, Golan and the West Bank? And perhaps that's their plan with the Luciferian UN here. So our goal is getting rid of 7 billion people and creating a crisis big enough to impose their satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government. That's a conspiracy fact, not a conspiracy theory. So then you can all figure out how to prevent it. Or just be prepared with a radiological water filter and storable food and a shelter. Or hide at sea if you don't get seasick, but that's not for me basically. The sea makes me dizzy. Makes me throw up actually. So perhaps psychic people have more problems with that also. In planes I would start throwing up when the plane took off, etc. And I thought it couldn't be only air sickness. But I don't see it happening. I think most people don't want a 7-year nuclear winter, mutually assured destruction. But are they trying to give the illusion that their missile systems, their missile shields, like the Iron Dome, cannot ward off these missiles that they get through? Though they don't talk about Dr. Bernd Eastland HARP patent. 37 GMO deaths are left out in the mainstream media as well. So they could ward them off if they'd want to, but they pretend they cannot to reduce the global population to 500 million. And it's also the cheapest way to get rid of the nukes and to get rid of all evidence, websites, the internet, all websites of people that have written about their New World Order, global government plans, etc. And their population reduction plans that would all be wiped out by the EMP, the electromagnetic pulse, and they should put it in a metal bin and ground that bin, then it will not be erased. Or put the data on a DVD or CD-ROM. So after what they've done to me, which I've described in my previous videos, also the dental torture, murdering my mother with directed energy weapons, etc., and many other types of torture in pulsed energy projectile mode and ADS mode, I think these people are definitely capable of these things, and nobody can defend themselves without a Tesla plasma shield. So everybody is totally helpless, and they can be extorted and remotely tortured. So a fair trial is also impossible. And with that same wireless energy technology, they've crashed these planes into the WTC, and they of course control the voting results, so they let whoever they want to win with a small majority. And there's also a court case, but that's about something else. So that may be fake to cover up the way they really do it with wireless energy technology that superseded a atomic bomb creation by about 40 years. And Tesla's death rate, Tesla was a vegetarian, and he created it to end all wars. And we've seen, after Vietnam, we've also seen the depleted uranium war crime in Iraq. And that stuff costs $4.6 trillion. A trillion is a million millions. Costofwar.com is in my previous video. I show the website and all the costs split up into several categories. So yeah, what did I jot down? Who owns the West Bank and the Temple Mount now? Well, there may be different groups with different opinions about it. So the UN might think the Palestinians or whatever. They hurt my heart when I said that. Physically, I mean. And what will happen with the Palestinian people living in Gaza and the West Bank now? Annexation is generally held to be an illegal act. Wiki/annexation. And then there are three options, basically. One-state solution. Everyone living in Israel now gets an Israeli passport, if the Israelis get the Temple Mount. But the UN and Jesuits and Masons may have planned to reduce the global population to 500 million, and that wouldn't fit in with that. And also the question is, how would that work with the land? If you have Palestinian landowners. Well, it's clear they plan to annex it. Of course, the US spent more than all the other countries combined on the bloody war machine. So that's something to watch out for as well. 2, the Palestinians are expelled from Israel. So then they'd be put on a plane to Mecca, for example, etc. Or the third option, all people who are not Israelis are killed. And what would the UN do if they do more horrible things, such as the depleted uranium war crime? They haven't done anything about that either. So perhaps they just lay back, or if they want 7 billion people dead, and they may have planned other things, basically. So it's, wishful thinking is not going to help, I think. It's best if people are prepared and inform themselves to know what's really going on. And the mainstream media may not be the way to do that. So anything we read can be a big fat lie, and we can read some more Google News. So what would be the way then if InfoWars has controlled the position? People who expose control the position, and people who tell you the truth about God not existing and real resistance. Perhaps the Yellow Vests also have some good ideas. So my advice to them would be become a global movement. And perhaps the French could also do some more stuff in English. in the Dutch yellow vest as well. Perhaps they can contact me. I saw that Dr. Cut also tried to Skype me. I now use the desktop version of Skype. That's right here. So that I can now receive messages again. So I didn't know that for about a year or two I couldn't receive messages because I was using the Windows desktop app. It comes with Windows, and then you can't receive the messages that are sent by people because it doesn't start up automatically with Windows. Only the desktop app can do that. Unless you drag that icon here, you see a Skype icon. It takes a while to load because the CPU is busy. I'd better turn this off. I did click. Skype, this icon, and then you have to drag it into the startup folder, and you can Google where your startup folder is located. And start up the version in Windows as well. But then it's not nicely hidden like this version, and it's an icon on your taskbar. So let's read some more headlines. And this is headlines of 2 hours ago or so.
In Trump, Netanyahu sees an ally who helps him push the envelope. New York Times. 10 hours ago. Washington, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's vow for Israel to annex parts of the West Bank would flout 4 decades of American Israelis go to the polls in a close, crucial election. CBS News. 6 hours ago. The Trump pollster helping Netanyahu win.
So I'd love to know what you all think about this annexing business and the UN stance, and how world war can be avoided and universal peace can be created. Because we need to control all factors that control aging, otherwise we all die. I think that a world war is not a smart thing to do at the moment, if they have no control of all factors that control aging, if they haven't achieved negligible senescence yet. Then it's possible that if they do a world war, that they'd cut themselves off from that. And it's also a question if resurrection, etc. will ever be possible. Theoretically, yes, because everything is energy, including time. And then they can just time travel and get your loose bone and recreate you. It's interesting. But I thought about that, how would that work, and when would they get that loose bone? After the person has died? Well, whenever they can get it, basically. But then that should have been noticed when they died, basically, or perhaps it's unnoticeable, it just clones it and then grows the person again, forms the person again. Anyway, let's first read on.
Right now we are. International Hertz. 6 hours ago. Donald Trump has let the Israeli annexation genie out of the bottle. Opinion. Financial Times. 3 hours ago. Israeli election, Netanyahu pitted against Gantz but Trump looms large. In-depth. News.com. 9 hours ago. Trump peace plan to be unveiled mid-June depending on Israeli. International. I-24 News. 16 hours ago. View all story image for Trump Israel from The Intercept. On the eve of Israel's election, Netanyahu thanks Trump for. The Intercept. 20 hours ago. On the eve of Israel's election, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took credit for President Donald Trump's decision to impose sanctions on. Netanyahu says Trump designated Iran Guards a terror group at his. The Times of Israel. April 8, 2019. Netanyahu praises Trump for putting Iran's Revolutionary Guards on. The Jerusalem Post. April 8, 2019.
So there's a Palestinian Authority, and they abbreviate that with PA, I think. There are also other meanings covered in my previous broadcasts about that Palestinian Authority that thinks it will lead to violence. Because Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps is part of their military, their normal military basically, so they're not ISIS, etc. And someone else said that they'd brand American soldiers as ISIS, they treat them as ISIS terrorists basically if they would name Iran's the IRCG a terrorist organization, or terrorist group. So they do the same to the American soldiers over there basically. And I do think it's kind of weird that spreading depleted uranium is seen as a war on terror, not a war of terror, and people that defend themselves, their country and their loved ones against the invaders, the invasion, are seen as terrorists. But if they'd invade the US or Israel and spread depleted uranium there, who would be the terrorist then?
Netanyahu says Trump named Iran's Revolutionary Guard a terrorist. International Los Angeles Times 20 hours ago Trump to designate Iranian military unit as a terrorist group. Opinion Washington Post April 8, 2019 Trump designates Iran's Revolutionary Guards a foreign terrorist group. International New York Times 19 hours ago View all. For EU officials, anti-Israel behavior is routine. Al Jiminer April 8, 2019.
Well, I think they pretend to be, but Netanyahu and Bush were not punished by the UN or the EU for their depleted uranium war crime, and the lie that Iraq supposedly has weapons of mass destruction as well, like they now claim of Iran. So I think that it's just controlled opposition, fake resistance to prevent any real resistance, the UN and the EU. But okay, if they've planned that war and to destroy the EU, etc., a world war over that, and most people live in India and in China, and Ebola is also still spreading now, again, so that may be a new strain they have developed, and they want to reduce the global population with killer vaccines, but perhaps it's just a distraction to be able to create a world war. So I think other things will happen as well, if that's their plan. What else do we see? The EU thinks Israel should replace the UK after March. Israel to hold referendum on replacing Britain in EU. Well, perhaps they can build a third temple in Britain. An idea. I find it a weird idea. Replacing Britain in EU. The EU thinks Israel should replace the UK after March, said Netanyahu. Has they all lost their minds or something? I don't know. Perhaps I'm not getting it or whatever, but EU is Israel. UN, you and Israel. UN and Israel are manufacturing humanitarian narratives. Israel holds first. Well, I don't know if I should read it. Arab countries hold off on UN action over US Golan move. UN calls for two-state solution. Oh really? Wow. In line with the Vatican. So a two-state solution world war might still be in the cards. Israeli, so that's divide to conquer, first splitting it up into groups, they can play out against each other, and then Palestine with its allies, Russia, etc., and Israel with its ally, US, etc., would go to war, and that way they'd reduce the global population to 500 million. And because of the normalcy bias, many people think it's not going to happen, can't happen, etc. But then why do we have all these weapons of mass destruction, weapons of self-destruction surrounding ourselves? For fun. Real sabotage, you just pretend they're real. Because otherwise conversations get too boring. UNDU. Israeli forces may have committed war crimes, UN report. A UN Independent Commission of Inquiry found that Israeli soldiers used live ammunition against unarmed protesters, killing at least 189. So during the protest of the Yellow Vest, some Yellow Vest Guillaume lost their eye. But in Gaza, 189 people lost their lives. Well, Al Jazeera reports. So I think that people that really don't choose sides, that are independent reporters, have a totally different view of all these things on this reality, basically. Oh really? War crimes, and what are they going to do about it? Just whining, yeah, war crime, oh yeah, we all agree, okay. That's settled then. Move on to the next item on our agenda. UN War Crimes Panel urges Israel to stop using lethal force again. Yeah, we urge you now. So you better watch out. Don't do it again. Or else. Jewish groups prepare to protest UN's anti-Israel bias in Geneva. It's not anti-Israel bias. There are certain agreements and laws, etc. You can't just go invading and annexing any countries you don't like, etc. And I thought there were just 70 dead protesters. Theresa May not. Sneezing. This one's also very informative, educational. So please like and subscribe and share on your timelines. Trump's promise to audit the Fed. Trump quote, "It is so important to audit the Federal Reserve." 12:37 p.m. 22nd of February 2016 already. But you'd need a 3D printer for that. I was thinking about something else, never mind. Oh yeah, internet censorship in China. The Great Firewall of China, top 10 websites blocked in China. eBay, Google is Baidu, YouTube is Youku, Facebook Renren, Twitter Weibo, eBay, Taobao.com, and Groupon also exists in a different form in China. There was another picture I wanted to show. Oh yeah, with the Gaza protesters in Ivanka. This shows more yellow vests, basically, who are still protesting regularly, and there's a blackout in the mainstream media, but usually in the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, you can see the protests in France. And the chats can be fun to read, also educational, of course. Well, it depends on what channel you're on. But on most channels, most chats are not that cool. Not many informed people giving great chat remarks, educational or informative or even shocking chat remarks. Me wearing a yellow vest. I look pretty bad also because of the scalar torture, etc. Control the position, I also covered control the position in some of my broadcasts. Oh yeah, no blood for cancer oil. Trump made clear in several broadcasts that he wants to take their oil. I can play it very fast.
At great oil companies, if I blow up every single inch, there would be nothing left. And you know what? You'll get Exxon to come in there in 2 months. You ever see these guys, how good they are, the great oil companies? They'll rebuild that sucker brand new, it'll be beautiful. And I bring it, and I take the oil. And I said, I'll take the oil. Take back the oil.
Is my mic still on grey? Okay. 60 protesters killed in Gaza, unjustifiable. Oh, 60 even. And I read 189. I think. So let's check that out then. It's Al Jazeera already opened the article. Israeli security forces shot and wounded 6,016 protesters with live ammunition in the period investigated, while 189 people died at the protest sites, 183 of these from live fire. A significant number of persons also died in the days and weeks after they were injured. A total of 73 Palestinian protesters died of gunshot injuries sustained on May 14, 2018. That's the Al Jazeera article. Israeli forces may have committed war crimes, UN report. A UN inquiry finds Israel used live ammunition against unarmed protesters, killing at least 189 Palestinians last year. Well, they just claim it's standard procedure. Basically, they're locked up in Gaza and they're not allowed to leave. And if they try, then they're shot. Like rats in a cage, basically. Israel elections, Netanyahu and main rival in tight race. After a close contest, polls show Netanyahu's Likud party appears better placed to form coalition government. So that's inhumane what they're doing to the people in Gaza, that's the point. They're not rats, they're humans, and that's why I put it that way. I have no idea what I just read, so I'm reading it now. Oh, and they both want annexation, so it doesn't really matter in that respect who gets elected. Lebanon fears for disputed territory with Israel after Trump's Golan recognition. Despite withdrawing from Lebanon in 2000, Israel remained in control over the strategic areas of Sheba farms and adjacent Kfar Shauba hills it seized alongside Golan in 1967. Okay, did I read this already? If I did, then I'm gonna read it again, but I think it's the first time in this broadcast, so. And this is Haaretz, the land.
Lebanon fears for disputed territory with Israel after Trump's Golan recognition. Despite withdrawing from Lebanon in 2000, Israel remained in control over the strategic areas of Sheba Farms and adjacent Kfar Shaba Hills it seized alongside Golan in 1967. The Associated Press sent me email alerts April 09th 2019 6:08 p.m. 0 comments. Then subscribe now. 42 share on Facebook. Tweet send via email. Reddit stumble upon file photo. U.S. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hold a meeting in the Oval Office at the White House in Washington, D.C., March 25, 2019. File photo. U.S. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hold a meeting in the Oval Office at the White House in Washington, D.C., March 25, 2019. AFP. Your Prime Minister Netanyahu, watch Trump's very awkward speech to American Jews. Trump signs order recognizing Golan Heights as Israeli territory. EU says does not recognize Israeli sovereignty over Golan Heights. Lebanon's president says U.S. recognition of Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights undermines Lebanon's claim to disputed territory also annexed by Israel. Michelle Aoun spoke Tuesday during a press conference with visiting Bulgarian President Truman Radev. Editorial: The Golan Heights First Analysis. Why Golan recognition can't pave way for Israel to annex West Bank. Arab countries unanimously rejected the recent U.S. recognition of Israeli control over the Golan.
So I'm ashamed of what happened in the Middle East with these illegal wars and the depleted uranium war crime. And steps must be taken so it can't happen again with Iraq.
Seized from Syria in the 1967 Six-Day War and annexed in 1981, calling the Trump administration's policies unfairly biased toward Israel. But for Lebanon, there are fears over its claim to the Sheba Farms and adjacent Kfar Shaba Hills, which Israel.
So I'm ashamed of the depleted uranium war crime, and steps must be taken so it can't happen again. To Iran, of course, I said Iraq, but I meant Iran, and they do that with synthetic telepathy. But I guess you already figured, I mean Iran in this case.
Seized alongside Golan in 1967, Israel had occupied South Lebanon, but despite withdrawing in 2000, remained in these strategic areas. The UN, which doesn't recognize Israel's sovereignty over Golan, has said Lebanon's claim is to be settled with the Golan's fate. U.S. President Donald Trump met in March with Prime Minister Benjamin to sign a presidential proclamation officially recognizing the Golan Heights as Israeli territory, thus formalizing a move announced with a tweet earlier that month. Stay up to date, sign up to our newsletter, email sign up. Netanyahu called Trump's decision to recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights historic justice and a diplomatic victory, saying that Israel won the Golan Heights in a just war of defense. The move by Trump caused an instant international uproar of protests. Under international law, the Golan Heights are considered to be Syrian territory occupied by Israel, like East Jerusalem and the West Bank.
Syrian territory makes me think of Syrian Girl. You can probably still find videos. So I'm totally against the wars, I'm against their population reduction, legal torture with directed energy weapons. I'm also anti-religion, but not anti-religious people. So basically, Muslim apostates, people who try to leave Islam, are killed in many countries. That's why Geert Wilders and others consider Islam a violent ideology. And in other broadcasts I've made clear why religion is an abomination. And one reason is that it's based on the big fat lie that there's something higher than the humans worth dying for in world wars and blowing yourself up for, to get with these virgins in paradise in heaven. But in reality, all religions are made by Satanists, and the bodies go into the ground, not into heaven, into the sky. So that's the satanic inversion. And they use it on many levels. So it's Jesuits and Masons who were expelled. The Jesuits were expelled. The Masons are secret society, Lucifer worshippers. Heavily involved. They're heavily involved in the population reduction as well, of course. They've near perfect laws, but they're not enforced by them, apparently. That's my point. So they do horrible things to people with the remote torture technology. And they're pursuing a military state and not a police state. And it's a real war, not an info war, because they're really poisoning people, really killing people. And they're also really torturing people, of course, with these directed energy weapons. You can see thousands of targeted individuals that have uploaded their testimonies. And some of the first ones may have been fake and posting misinformation that it's done with microwaves, etc. Which is impossible. Microwaves are easy to shield, to block with aluminum foil, for example, and that's a good idea because it is damaging to your health. Microwaves cause DNA breaks, chromosomal damage, and reproducible tests you can do at home shows that it causes lumping red blood cells after you use a cancer cell phone for 90 seconds. But there may be many people who lie and help spread lies about it to help reduce the global population, either knowingly or unknowingly. And unsafety standards, of course. So they've also adjusted the safety standards, changed them into unsafety standards for nuclear radiation to reduce the global population. It's better to know the truth. Knowledge is power. And to confront ourselves with these things, instead of run away from them, then we'll run into them later and perhaps they will kill us. So protection, safety first, prepping, a bug out bag, a prepper bag that you can take with you if something happens. That's a good idea as well. Gas mask, iodine pills, radiological water filter, because people need water regularly. They can go almost a month without food, but water every day is required. Alright, well, It's getting pretty late, so this was my broadcast. I might not have much more interesting stuff. I might keep the camera on for a while to see if I get any bright ideas. But you could also think of it from another point of view, basically the point of view where you just assume they've planned a third world war, and then how would they bring it about, and looking if there are any anomalies in the mainstream media. So yeah, if you're gonna do anything like press charges, do it to the people whose policies killed millions, not to innocent civilians. For a better timeline. Everybody has its own influence on this reality, though you could argue everybody has its own non-influence because of splintering. So then the question is, will the splintering because of internet, will that divide the people or give the people more power? Is it good or bad for the people? That's the question, because that's what it's really about, because we're all the people, 7.5 billion of us strong. Reminds me of strong and weak intelligence. So what could happen? Whatever, I'm for the peaceful and safest solution, for whatever is best for most people, for all people of planet Earth. So making a list of options and doing nothing might be best, unless you can control the outcome. Anyway, have a better plan. And if we don't have a plan and they have a plan, then we've already lost, most probably. So if we do not act, we are acted upon. Recovery begins with non-compliance. Transforming reactive into proactive behavior begets lasting fulfillment. To quote Rabbi Berg. Well, not choosing sides can have the problem that both sides just attack you and hate on you, basically, but at a certain point I might see, hey, he has some good things to say as well. So it's just about doing the right thing, being the best we can be, saving the maximum number of human lives. So colloidal silver, probiotics, an air cleaner with an ionizer, a normal tap water filter, and etherical oils, diatomaceous earth food grade, aspergillus root powder, controlling the telomeres if you want to rejuvenate. Dr. Sears has written more about aspergillus root powder. And Googling ways to live longer, healthier lives, extending our lives, rejuvenation, not oil of Olas, but real rejuvenation. I'm looking for something better, even better than the astragalus root powder. Stretching my leg. So if there are any lies in my broadcast, please let me know, because I'm a truth teller and I'm a conspiracy factist. I could play some music. Piano is not working. I am working. So it's based on 528 Hz. Oh, I forgot to turn off my mic. So that generates peace and love, DNA. Is healed by the resonance, the frequency 528 Hz. So a Dr. Rife frequency. And 432 Hz is also good. The frequency to avoid is 440 Hz tuning, which causes hysteria. Dr. Horowitz also wrote about it, and I think he's not scamming anyone with that. But if you have anything that proves that he's scamming us, then please let me know in the comments. I think you can prove that. Some gaming device, I will do some broadcast about it at another time. One transparent mini arcade Raspberry Pi 3B Plus. And at the moment I'm running some Nintendo 64-bit game. It's a waterboarding jet ski game. It's pretty good. So it also plays PSP, some PSP, not all PSP, and PS1, etc. Raspberry Pi 3B Plus is pretty famous already. Alright, so breathing, yoga hetero exercise, good position. I should be careful that I don't get too cold. expanding my consciousness instead of narrowing it down. With the cancer causing killer alcohol and tobacco and caffeine. I was watching that movie with these colors and stuff. It's pretty original, shot over shoulder and about druggies, etc., or drug users. A guy that doesn't test any drugs he uses, but then he gets shot by a police officer when he doesn't open the toilet. He's flushing his pills down the toilet, etc. And basically, I'm somewhere in that movie. Still have to watch the second half. Title of the movie. Viewers, I don't know at the moment. So I go to the right directory. Movies 2019. Enter the Void, I think. 2009. I think it's pretty cool because it's like you're experiencing the users, the main characters, DMT experience basically. So, and I've never done DMT, but I've heard positive things about it. And they might not be telling the truth about DMT in the movie, but it's still an interesting movie. So, what's going to happen if I try to sense it? Well, I never do that practically. Well, perhaps I can program myself with hypnosis to have more precognitive visions. But universal peace can happen. I mean, it is possible even if they've all lost their mind, because everything is energy, everything is possible. So, the future is not set, there is no fate but what we make for ourselves. Terminator 2 or something, movie quote. So I've been wondering about that, if it can show us the future, is it seen through our own eyes or other people's eyes or camera, then is that changeable or will it happen? I think it would be changeable. If it can show us, then we can choose to be in a different place at that time, or yeah, not to be at that place at that time. So then that scenario cannot unfold, basically. Well, I have to think about this more, and I think at the moment I'm going to get some fruit juice, so I'm going to do another broadcast. I'm sure that there will be more news concerning Israel and annexation and Trump's plans, etc. But I think the UN is a wolf in sheep's clothes, like I've explained in previous broadcasts. And also I explained why I think that about Lucifer book publishing company of the UN, now called Lose His Trust. Sounds like lose his trust or whatever. Or lose his trust. If you can beat them, join them. That type of mentality of princess evil, what do they call it? Not the evil twin. Whatever, there's a term for it. Anyway, he was playing a bad guy. Bob or whatever. You can Google it. So, yeah, gonna get some sleep also. 3:15 in the Netherlands already, almost. So, people can protest, they can boycott all Monsanto companies, or whoever must be boycotted for a better future. Also, so smaller farmers also have a chance, and so you don't die of a GMO, a genetically modified organism, like these 37 people that died of a GMO contained in a food supplement. So it's best to avoid soy, cotton and canola, and animal products must also be bio-organic eco. That may be a scam, so they've contaminated our biosphere with genetically modified organisms. And if you don't want to eat these Franken foods that may contain insect genes and all kinds of stuff we don't want, basically they've type of corn that grows the AIDS virus, HIV, in it. That's epicide corn, spelled in a way that it's kind of hard to find. Anyway, yeah, so food is a sterilizing murder weapon to reduce the global population as well. What was I talking about? 2 tired. I'm gonna have to continue my broadcast some other time. I was trying to get a precognitive vision, or to think about what will happen, but usually I use logic, and then I first need more facts about this stuff, like these two questions I asked. I try to answer them myself, but I have to spend some more time, and then perhaps I can give you some more answers and ways to create universal peace instead of a world war. But we have to watch out they don't make that prophecy a self-fulfilling prophecy about red heifer, perfectly red cow, perfect red cow without blemishes, born in Israel, that announces the coming of the Cancer Scalar Orb Armageddon Messiah, according to the rabbis and Hebrew scholars. So it's about your blood, and people who want to spill it are your enemy. People who want to reduce the global population, that are poisoning you all. For example, with cancer chemtrails, conspiracy fact, because it's Project Cloverleaf and it's the CIA's Evergreen Aviation, and it's proven beyond any reasonable doubt they're not contrails by the fact that these white lines were visible in the sky before 1998. There were no white lines in the sky, proving they're not contrails, condensation vapors, but chemtrails, cancer chemtrails. And it's Project Cloverleaf, so that means that it's not a conspiracy theory, but a conspiracy fact. And I've also shown a picture of Trump and Merkel in a cancer chemtrail plane. So these people work for them, not for the people, to keep it clear. And, well, is a two-state solution completely off the table now, or not? And the UN probably wouldn't stand a chance against US, and if they go to war, I mean, not even with the support of Russia. But that's just a theory based on spending the absurd amount of money spent on the bloody war machine instead of controlling aging and things we really need. US spending more on the bloody war machine than all the other countries combined. And war is always a crime. And also, if there would be a nuclear event, and the animals would die as well, birds and cats and dogs that don't get clean water, contaminated water. But either way, it's best to be prepared anyway for such an event. Really, you could argue there is no excuse not to be prepared if you're in a civilized country. However, you must also have a blast shelter below the blast wave of the nuclear weapons that are detonated in the air, supposedly, to have a bigger yield. The Tsar bomb would also wipe out Meidrecht, basically. I'm in Meidrecht near Amsterdam. But perhaps they'd use something else. And I've read that Trump's unstoppable missile is lost at sea, So I don't know what happened with that and with the missing trillion, etc., or missing trillions even. So I haven't read in depth about these things because there are other more important things, I think. But perhaps I'm wrong about that, and perhaps it's an interesting read. So I just throw it in there in this broadcast for free. Trying to give you all the best advice I can, and I think there's some pretty interesting stuff, interesting intel or information in my broadcasts. And I think I'm really quite accurate, reasonably professional, and considering the circumstances, I think my broadcasts are really quite good. So, trust no one, nothing is what it seems. Do healing stuff for universal peace, and see you all next time. I'm gonna get something to drink and some sleep, and then I'll feel much better, hopefully. And share this video or videos that you think are more important on your timeline.